Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in the clown decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And in this video I'm doing one of those rare things and actually giving a few compliments to the leader of the Labour Party because I think he's done actually quite well on this particular topic. Once again, this is all about how a war that is happening on the other side of Europe has somehow made waves and caused a huge upheaval in the middle of British politics. Because really there is only one justifiable reaction after a terrorist group causes mass terrorism within your borders. And it also appears that all the worst type of people are against the idea of Israel steamrolling Gaza. Don't get me wrong, I want to see minimal civilian casualties, but in modern warfare, where terrorists are using civilians as human shields, there is unfortunately going to be some collateral damage. Anyway, let's get into it. So, last month, a wave of Labour frontbenchers resigned to back calls for ceasefire in Gaza. 8 frontbenchers have defied Sir Keir Starmer to back a Commons vote calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Just to make that sentence a bit more clear, these 8 frontbenchers have resigned because Sir Keir Starmer enforced the whip and said you need to vote against a ceasefire in Gaza because Israel has absolutely every right to defend themselves and to rid the Hamas menace within Gaza. A wave of Labour frontbenchers, including senior MP Jess Phillips, have resigned in order to back an SNP motion calling for a ceasefire in Gaza in a blow to Sir Keir Starmer's authority. Afzal Khan, Yasmin Qureshi, Paula Barker and Naz Shah are among the 8 shadow junior ministers that quit in order to defy party orders to abstain from the vote. Rachel Hopkins, Sarah Owen and Andy Slaughterer have also left their frontbench roles after breaking the party whip to back the amendment. MPs voted 293 to 125, majority 168, to reject the SNP's King's Speech amendment calling for all parties to agree to an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. And to me, this entire episode just goes to show that Labour are simply not ready to govern. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not me saying that the Tories are in any fit shape to govern either. I don't think any particular party is in a good shape to govern. Hence, we have such a large amount of political apathy. You're probably going to see about 40 to 50% turnout at the next election because people just do not care to vote. But the simple fact that a war that essentially has absolutely nothing to do with Britain, that is happening at the other side of Europe, with such a one-sided moral argument, I mean, Hamas literally committed a terrorist attack that was equivalent to 9/11 against Israel, which is obviously going to justify a large-scale military reaction from Israel, is being seen as the number one issue to, at the very least, 8 opposition frontbenchers. It is so important they are going to resign over it. They are not willing to make any sort of compromise on this issue to get any sort of policy they want in. This is the policy that matters the most to them, hence they have resigned over it. And realistically, if your government in waiting clearly cares a lot more about a war happening in the Middle East than they do about their own countrymen, then they are not fit to govern that country. And their reasoning does make it clear that all this is about is foreign affairs that have very little to do with Britain, and that Britain have very little to no influence over anyway. It would be like a number of the board members at Ford quitting their job over the fact that General Motors are having a spat with Volkswagen, and the Ford CEO isn't making a statement to say, I am on the side of Volkswagen. It's just a very childish thing to do and doesn't make an awful lot of sense. However, again, this is going to be a relatively complimentary video on Keir Starmer because I think he did react in quite a good way to this. In a statement, Sir Keir said he regretted that the party colleagues had not backed his position, but he added, I wanted to be clear about where I stood and where I stand. Leadership is about doing the right thing. That is the least the public deserves and the least that leadership demands. Which is a perfectly fine statement. I think it is the right thing as well to support Israel's military reaction to a terrorist attack on the scale that the terrorist attack was. The Labour Party has been divided over its approach to the Middle East conflict. The Labour leader has backed the government's position of pushing for humanitarian pauses in the fighting to allow aid to reach Palestinians trapped in the bombarded territories, but stopping short of calling for a total cessation of hostilities, saying that would embolden Hamas. And given that, at least to IDF sources, that Hamas broke that ceasefire, that does appear to be the case, though I am also open-minded to thinking that the IDF might have lied. Though that's one for the history books, I think. So naturally, as with pretty much all resignations from both the Cabinet and Shadow Cabinet, there were letters sent to Keir Starmer, and this was Jess Phillips. Dear Sir Keir, this week has been one of the toughest weeks in politics since I entered Parliament. I've tried to do everything I can to make it so this was not the outcome, but it is with a heavy heart that I will be leaving my post in the Shadow Cabinet Home Office team. On this occasion, I must vote with my constituents, my head, and my heart, which has felt as if it were breaking over the past 4 weeks with the horror of the situation in Israel and Palestine. I can see no route where the current military action does anything but put at risk the hopes of peace and security for anyone in the region now and in the future. So what I find most interesting about the second paragraph there is how she says, I must vote with my constituents. Because you can see at a glance here that according to the statistics from the 2021 census, for Birmingham Yardley, the constituency where Jess Phillips is the Member of Parliament for, the largest religion there is Muslims, which is about 2% higher than the Christian cohort, with absolutely no Jewish people whatsoever. And given that Jess Phillips has had altercations in the past with her Muslim constituents about gay education at schools, it seems that she is trying to learn the lesson in that she will go against pretty much everything she actually really cares about to try and get voted in again by what is essentially a foreign religious cohort, a rather sizable one at that, which really does play at odds with the rest of her letter here. It is with great regret that I walk away from the role of domestic abuse and safeguarding Shadow Minister. However, I don't want to walk away from the work. Working with Yvette Cooper on mission to halve incidents of domestic abuse within 10 years of a Labour government has been an honour. I am so proud that it is your Labour Party and hopefully your government that has prioritised the issues of men's violence against women more than any before. We have a real chance to deliver a sea of change in women's safety, not just tinkering with legislation, but actual systemic change across housing, health, welfare, and the criminal justice system. So while Jess Phillips is trying to claim that this is the pinnacle of all her work and that she really does care about this, apparently there's a little outbreak of war at the other side of Europe and she has to drop all that. And she is implying with this letter that the reason for that is because she wants to get voted in again. I am voting with my constituents. Majority of them happen to be Muslim, and Muslims overwhelmingly sympathise with the Palestinian side, so of course they're all calling for a ceasefire. And Jess Phillips is willing to drop all her work to reduce domestic violence against, well, mainly against women from everything she says, all because she is taking the politically expedient route to try and get elected again. And this is what the result of demographic changes will always be. You have to constantly see what's going to get you voted in, and then drop everything you actually care about to try and make your constituents happy. And if they are majority of a foreign religion, then you're going to see yourself trying to appease that foreign religion. However, as always with Jess Phillips, whenever she is in the news for half a week, the Times decide that they need to do an interview with her. Jess Phillips, why I resigned, what Keir said, and my breast up. Last month, Jess Phillips quit as a shadow minister over Keir Starmer's stance on Gaza, but then she's never played it safe. This is the definition of playing it safe. She admits that she is essentially being strong-armed by the idea that she wants to get voted in again by a majority Muslim constituency. Whether it's standing up to extreme online abuse or being a fan of cosmetic surgery. Though, to be honest with you, I think the absolute funniest thing about this entire interview is the fact that she dressed up to look like a gay Jen from the IT crowd. This is just one of the oddest pictures I think I've ever seen in my life. And it's at this point in the video where it's probably going to be clipped and used in court when Labour want to do me for being offensive to women online. And I have no doubt that this will be used by Jess Phillips as a reason for saying that she is suffering from online misogynistic abuse. And all I can say to that is, maybe just make sure that you actually look good for photo shoots, Jess Phillips. A month ago, Jess Phillips had her dream job. As Shadow Minister for Domestic Abuse, she was responsible for an issue she had campaigned about for more than 20 years. She could have been on the brink of going into government and able to deliver change. Yeah, and she threw it all away because she wants to make sure she's voted in again by a huge Muslim cohort within a constituency. She then quit to vote in the House of Commons against Keir Starmer's stance on Gaza and in favour of a ceasefire. It's been a tug-of-war emotionally, she admits. It is sad, but I don't think that it lessens my influence in the space of violence against women and girls. There is no way I'm going to stop. If anything, I'm able to do more of it. Which has to be one of the most ridiculous quotes I think I've ever seen in an interview. I am in charge of a government department in waiting that will make sure that I can do anything I want in regards to stopping violence against women and girls. But now I think I can actually do more from the backbenches. Just complete nonsense, complete childish nonsense. We are run by clowns at the moment. We are going to be run by even stupider clowns when Labour get in, because there's no doubt in my mind that she will return to the front benches once Labour are in. She thinks she'll find it easy to highlight the causes she cares about from the backbenches, as she always has done. Funnily enough, I drove straight home after the vote and I stopped at the Burger King at Heston Services. Ed Arger, the Tory former Victims Minister, rang me. He said, "I just want to check you're okay. The work carries on, Jess. You've done so much from outside government to influence us in what we do. Be heartened." I mean, yes, a former work colleague checked in on you. That doesn't mean that you have the same influence you have before. You obviously have much, much less. I mean, this either means one of two things, Jess. It either means that you weren't doing much work to influence it anyway, or it means you care a hell of a lot more about Palestinians and their politics and way of life than you do about the British. In which case, why don't you go over and try and help Palestine directly, rather than virtue signalling here and then trying to cope saying, "Oh, I've not actually sacrificed anything anyway." Like, good job. Philip's resignation was the most surprising and high profile of the departures from the Labour's top team, presumably because it was one of the only non-Muslim ones. "I'm not a troublemaker," she says, but she felt she did not really have a choice. In the end, it was the level of kindness and thoughtfulness from my constituents. I understand that's not been the case for others. It has for some people felt oppressive. You must do this. I didn't have any of that. I wasn't dealing with people for whom this was their cause célèbre. I was getting British Gazan families out of Gaza. Several of them are doctors. I was talking to them and they were telling me that they were waiting to find out if they were going to be on the list to get through to Rafah Crossing, and they were running out of water." Phillips was close to tears. "There was a 4-month-old baby and a 75-year-old woman in one party of 16 of my constituents. At that point, I just thought, this isn't a humanitarian crisis like an earthquake or cyclone. There is a reason they can't get anything to eat, and we've got to find a political solution. And I'm fine trying to give humanitarian aid and even having humanitarian pauses from Israel and Gaza so that we can get innocent civilians out. There is no doubt that Israel have been doing this. However, then when they take over hospitals, they seem to find a hell of a lot of military equipment in tunnels underneath the hospital and within it. Now, of course, this isn't the civilians' fault, it is Hamas, but if we just say, okay, you're using human shields, therefore you win, it doesn't really give good incentives for the rest of warfare. On the day of the vote, she met the Labour leader and told him she would continue to be loyal on other issues. "He understands my position, and I understand his," she said. "What I sought to assure him of was that I intend always to be an asset in achieving a Labour government. I think that there's potential for me to be much more of an asset to him than maybe even if I was in his team, especially as we go towards an election." So why resign over this in the first place anyway then, Jess? What principle are you standing on? Are you standing on the principle of all war must end? Because the government was in favour of humanitarian temporary ceasefires, and then Hamas broke that ceasefire, at least according to the RDF. I don't know why you are so focused on Israel stopping its military assault when Hamas seemed to have trouble sticking to the ceasefire just as much, if not much more, than Israel. Having said all this, she is actually reasonably sensible when it comes to the pro-Palestine protests. Phillips did not join any of the pro-Palestinian rallies and was appalled by the protesters carrying anti-Semitic placards. "They're not my fellow travellers in any way, shape or form," she says. "It worries me that they're anti-Semitic just as much as it ever worries me that people are anti-Semitic. They should be stopped and given no legitimacy. The idea that Jewish people feel frightened to share their identity is chilling." The crowds harassing Michael Gove in Victoria Station after one of the protesters in London were particularly disturbing to her. "I don't think that people should harangue MPs. It's frightening. I've got people saying, you only want civility, and I'm like, well, yeah, civility wins." Which is what makes me question why she wants a permanent ceasefire with Israel and Gaza. Hamas are the opposite of civilized. Israel are giving humanitarian corridors and ceasefires to allow civilians to leave. Israel are undoubtedly the civilized side here. Hamas are not. Yes, civilians are being caught up in all this, But that is just the reality of modern warfare. Just because civilians do get caught up in modern warfare doesn't mean we should have no war whatsoever. There are perfectly legitimate reasons to go to war, and to wipe Hamas off the face of the earth is absolutely one of them. However, as just mentioned in this article, while Jess Phillips does have a good opinion when it comes to the pro-Palestinian protesters, she did also mention that Michael Gove was indeed harassed within the train stations and streets of London by the pro-Palestinian protesters, and unfortunately, this has also recently happened to Sir Keir Starmer in Glasgow. Yep, so Keir Starmer was just walking through Glasgow train station and being harassed by a pro-Palestine rally, just completely surrounded, similar to how Michael Gove was. Because we're in a crazy situation in this country where for some reason the life and death #1 issue for an awful lot of people is Israel-Palestine. And I seriously don't get why so many people care, but clearly enough do, to not only harass him in a public place like a station, but also an albeit still public place, though you'd expect people to give them more privacy, as he was also confronted on the actual train.
Keir, how many more children in Palestine have to die before you call for a ceasefire? Over 7,000 children have died. Over 7,000 children have been slaughtered by Israel. This is unacceptable. What happened to human rights? What happened to democracy? We call for peace, we call for democracy. We don't see any of that when it comes to the Palestinians. 7,000 children, how many more have to die? 20,000 people, how many more people have to die? This is unacceptable. Where is your humanity? Sir, where is your humanity? Please don't touch me. Please do not touch me. I'm not doing anything wrong. Okay, I'm not doing anything wrong. This is I've paid for a ticket. I'm on the train.
Now, obviously, the large crowd harassing him in the train station was worse, but there does seem to be these odd habits with Glaswegians where the loudest people of Glasgow seem to want to loudly let everyone know that they have taken the worst position possible. I can only imagine it's the influence of Celtic and the Irish within the city. And so this gives this young Scottish guy the confidence to go up to Sir Keir Starmer and berate him as if this is a really simple Israel are the evil people situation, which, as much as I do support them insofar as I think they have a perfectly reasonable reaction, I do understand that there is also a bit more complexity to this than they should just nuke Gaza off the map. I do think it's good that they are actually allowing for some humanitarian corridors to help the civilians who are effectively just innocent in this whole situation. Though luckily it seems that people were actually arrested in this Palestinian protest where Keir Starmer was harassed. 2 people have been arrested amid protests calling for a ceasefire in Gaza in Glasgow after Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer arrived in the city. On Thursday evening, protesters were seen outside of the Crown Plaza Hotel. Police Scotland said 2 people have been arrested in connection with assaulting officers at Congress Road. The force added that inquiries into the incident were ongoing. So it looks like police in Scotland are actually doing something about the crazy pro-Palestinian protests. I mean, it obviously doesn't seem like there was as much violence as we saw in the previous London protests, but honestly that could be partially down to the fact that they are actually arresting this low-level crime early, whereas in London barely anyone gets arrested, so they get emboldened and do even worse and worse things. But at the end of all this, it just turns out that Jess Phillips and no doubt the other front benchers were all just virtue signalling about the Israel-Gaza conflict, being of course on the side of Gaza to let their Muslim constituents know that yes, they are on their side against the oppressive Israeli regime, which effectively only exists there because it has managed to win so many defensive wars against the surrounding Arab states. If that doesn't justify your existence on a map, I don't know what the hell would. And when it comes to Sir Keir Starmer, he's clearly trying to get the normie vote with that, since the majority of people simply don't care about it either way, and you are quite simply just not a serious Western country if you call for a complete ceasefire from Israel. So at least to some extent, Starmer won't be the worst part of his own cabinet. Instead, that will be all the people that he is putting in who are there demanding that everything be made worse, whether it be with more immigration, more council housing, more public spending, or whatnot. Because we live in a post-Keynesianism zeitgeist, And the only way we're going to get out of it is either from a complete upset of the two major parties, or for the Tories to actually become right-wing, but I think we're quite a way off there. One thing I do think, though, when Labour come into power, I don't think it will be as bad as if Corbyn got in. In fact, I think they will keep the economy going in the chugging way it is now. I just don't think there'll be any major improvements. It's the cultural side I'm worried about because of who is going to be in that cabinet. Jess Phillips will absolutely be back there, I guarantee it. But anyway, that's just the little video I wanted to get out there today, since the Wednesday video was just a headache. So with that, please do watch Laughing at the Guardian tomorrow. It'll be the last one of the year before it returns for New Year. And catch me on the other side of the hill next Tuesday, Regional Variations on Tailed Features channel next Wednesday. And I will be making an appearance on Proper Horror Show's channel yet again next Thursday, making a surprise return before Christmas, where we will be talking about The Human Centipede. I'm expecting it to be one of the worst films I've ever seen. Anyway, that is everything I had for you today, so once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.